Welcome back, it's Josh Kinney again, and in this one we'll be discussing at state within SwiftUI. In that last video I showed you, you might have saw that binding string that was being passed, so we're going to dig in on that as well and go over it in detail of what exactly is happening behind the scenes. So let's go ahead and get into it. What we have here is our Xcode project and then the simulator here. The only thing I have changed is the string here. Instead of saying hello world, it's saying hello at state. So let's go ahead and add a form. Now in my last video, I discussed forms and what you can do with them. If you're not familiar, I highly suggest going and watching that. You can watch this one first and then jump over there as you'll be a little bit more familiar with the at state. But I am going to go through this stuff a little bit quick to kind of focus on at state more than anything else. Anyways, so right now if you do the form, it's going to go ahead and look like a form now. And we're going to go ahead and pass this. So we want this to be a text field. Now text field needs more than just the string. It's needing a localized string, so that can be of anything, but then it needs this binding string. Now with this binding, if you're not familiar, we're going to go over that, but I'm going to write it out first just so you can see. So the first thing is a placeholder. We're going to make this a salary, because what I want to show is the salary here. When you enter it, I wanted to display it down here in a text. Okay, so we'll do my salary. My salary, and then in this binding, we don't have the binding yet. So we're going to need to make a variable up here to pass in. Okay, so the first thing you would do normally is you would make your variable. So let's do var salary equals, and we're just going to set it to an empty string. And the reason why it needs to be string is that's because that's what a text field takes in. So it can't be set to an integer or we'll get a error. You'd have to wrap it. So, but we still can't just type in salary here and it work, because it's looking for that binding. And what binding means is it needs to take in value and give out values. So if it can't do that, then it'll give you an error. And the way SwiftUI allows us to do that is with a $sign. So you put a $sign here, and then that makes this a binding string, because it's set to a string there and it's binding, but it's still not working. Why is it not working? Because it now cannot find this in scope, because we did not set this to be an at state. And the main reason why you can't change this, and I'll go ahead and pull up a playgrounds that I had, is because, as we know, like if you had a struct, and this is just food prices with 4 different foods in it, without this mutating function, you can't go in here and change anything. They're set. Now you can set a different variable to equal this struct and then change it, or you can use this mutating function here to change the values. So that's the only way we can actually change this in these structs. Well, in SwiftUI, we can't do that mutating anymore. It's not going to allow us to do that up here. So the way we are able to change this is adding that at state. So that is what that's doing. It's a fancy way of saying, hey, this is going to be able to change. So when we pass in information and change this, it's going to go up here and say, hey, I know structs can't change their variables, but we're going to go ahead and allow them to, because it's at state. And the best way to think about at state, Paul Hudson said it in one of his videos, is if you're playing a video game, everything going on in that video game, the weapons you're picking up, who you're seeing, all that is at state. It's what's happening right now. But if you save that video and come back later, it gets saved and stored, as a saved video, no longer the state. So the way you think of this is what is going on right now is what's getting stored and used up here. So we need a binding variable. The only way to do that in this is to make this an at state so it can change, and now it registers and understands what that $sign is. So now if we go ahead and hit run, we will see we now have a salary that we can enter in. But to show you that it's changing as we go, so at state, I'll show you that. So we're going to go ahead and add another thing in here called section. And again, that was touched on in my other video, so go watch that to understand that a little better. We're just going to pass in text. And this text now is going to take in that salary. Okay, so now let's run that one last time and we will see. So your my salary is right here. As you type, so let's just say it's your salary is 13,000. You can see it's adding as we go. You take stuff off, it'll take it off. And that is the beauty of this at state. It is constant, instant, right there as you're going. That's what that at state is doing. So to wrap it up, this is a struct. Struct, you cannot change these variables. Adding the at state allows us now to do that. You need a binding for a lot of things you're working on inside of SwiftUI. To be able to do a binding, you need this $sign. However, it does not register up here that $sign without it being a state variable. So that's why you do that. And then you can pass that in. And lastly, I want to touch on this right here. When I did a text here, I don't have to do a $sign and then the actual salary here like I did here. And that's because all we're doing here is storing it. So the binding, of course, it's giving and receiving. That's all this binding is doing. Right here, it's just displaying. All we're doing is saying, hey, show me whatever we're passing in there. So it doesn't need to be binding. It doesn't have to take off and give in all the time. It's just showing exactly what is stored up here at the time. And this is doing all the work right here. So it's just storing it. Hey, if that changes, store it and show me the change. If you're interested, I will be finishing out this simple app here using what we've learned in that forms video I sent, and as well as this at state and using variables like that. What we'll be creating or finish creating is this right here is our salary. We'll be entering that. And then down here, we're going to have percentages. So it's going to range from 2 to 10%. And then you're going to be able to click on that and then calculate it. And it'll show down here on the bottom your calculated bonus increase. So you think of that at work. Hey, if I make $100,000, I got a 2.5 increase. How much more am I going to be making this year? And then it'll show you at the bottom. So just something super simple that you can make in SwiftUI. Maybe show somebody that, hey, this is what I've learned, this is what I've done. But the most important part is you're using the forms, you're using SwiftUI, and you're using some of the new things you've learned like binding strings and at state variables. So the link will be posted above and also in the description. Go ahead and look at that and watch it and tell me what you think. Like always, comment if you have any questions or comments below. Hit that bell if you want to see my newest content I put out. And then lastly, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel as it helps me get my name and my content out to others who may use it and get value from it. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.